Refuse you knew that need you to move back at least 10 feet from where I'm standing at. Refuse you knew that need you to move back.
Watch your back and watch your mouth. You better not come back, I'll knock you out whenever.
Get out my way, I ain't here for the platitudes. See this chip on my shoulder, it got an attitude. You don't wanna be the reason that I make the news. Turn the other cheek and play it cool. Be made a fool if you try and stop. A raging bull in a China shop. I'm paid in full, now it's time to shop. You ain't even qualified to be engaged in rivalry with the likes of me. If I was Siamese, I would cut you off and still survive indeed. Better mind your beeswax with a day's loaf, you ain't trying me. You got a problem? What's beef to a carnivore? Descendant of Sun Tzu, master the art of war. Cowboys behave and be good. Man, I can make Clint Eastwood go and practice priesthood. You done picked the wrong day to wear white. Me against 20 of you, a fair fight. Refuse you knew.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival live stream this Saturday. Right now, we are speaking with Jessie Lee, director and writer, correct?
Yeah.
Of Tea Shop, the short film that is playing in conjunction with AXANDAX. And immediately after this stream, we're also going to be interviewing the director of that film as well. If anybody has any questions, anybody watching, they can just enter those into the live chat and we'll address them as we proceed. So I guess I just want to kick this off by asking you, Jessie, to introduce yourself and your film.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Lee. I am the director of Tea Shop, and I am based in Los Angeles. That's where I'm streaming from right now. And Tea Shop was actually my thesis film for grad school at UCLA, which I just finished last year. And it's a story about two sisters who are reunited after being estranged for a period of time. And it's basically kind of them both figuring out what exactly is home. Is it a geographical thing, or is it more of a feeling, or is it ties to memories and the past? So it's about two sisters running their family store, and through the conflicts that their store faces, they have to reconcile with their previous conflicts.
Oh, thank you so much. I watched it this morning, actually, and it was like it's like an emotional gut punch, actually, that I wasn't expecting. I mean, I hope that anybody watching has already watched it, because part of me does want to speak a little bit to the ending as well. But I wanted to start with the beginning of the film itself, because it's a really effective opening act. You very succinctly, but patiently as well, describe Xin Liu's site, the rhythms of her everyday, and then that really sets up how her sister's sort of reinsertion into her life is in fact a kind of interruption of things. So I was wondering if you could just talk about that sort of establishing first act, and what it was like to build it. I mean, did you do things like play with shot length and stuff like that to figure out what the rhythm is like?
Yeah, definitely. Even when I was writing this script, the idea was to keep the shot design very, very controlled and very intentional. And I personally really love wide shots, and I kind of like seeing characters in their environment. And I thought that was a perfect way to kind of show how Liu Xing this is her life that she is trapped in. She feels trapped in the mundane kind of routine stuff that she has to do. And she's a young 20-something woman, and she's basically kind of throwing that away in order to manage this kind of rundown tea shop that her family has left behind. And so I think there's a lot of pent up resentment that's meant to kind of go into that whole shot design, where it's purposely not moving around, purposely just locking us where we are. And I had a lot of discussions with the DP, Siru Wen, super talented, super badass DP. And we looked at a lot of other films by Taiwanese directors, actually, like Edward Yang. We looked at Taipei Story for the framing a lot of times. And we just kind of wanted to let the whole film breathe a little bit and just kind of get some really nice shots of that old town vibe in that city where we shot in, called Dadaoten. Yeah, everything was just kind of very, very intentionally long takes, kind of durational, really kind of pushing the audience's patience, I think, sometimes and nowadays. But I mean, I feel like the wide shots, there's just so much context and textures that you just kind of want to like soak them in the first time you're being introduced to this world of the characters. And in terms of like editing it, that was probably the hardest part, because with long takes and durational stuff, it's very hard to find an in and out point. There's not much action where the actors are, moving around. They're not getting up out of their seats where I could just cut. So it was really just kind of like, what's the best like morsel that has the essence of Liu Xing and all of these shots. That was tricky.
It's tricky. Yeah, anything you've shot, I mean, I speak as a fellow video / filmmaker. Like anything you've shot, you feel like there's something a little bit precious about it. It's like, where do you cut? Can I trim that last second? Or is there something in there? Something that I loved about this film is that you learn everything almost diegetically. It's you just, by virtue of having these longer takes, and by things being not expositional whatsoever, really. Almost every detail you find out about these sisters' lives is by observing. And I guess what I'm wondering is what that looks like in the script phase, or in the writing phase, where things are really very much dependent on the situation and the not saying something,
For sure, yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up, because the script is way more fleshed out, and we shot way more scenes than what we ended up seeing in the final cut. We had I think there was way more, like 30 scenes or something, and a bunch of exteriors of just people walking around. And I think it was really even up to the first day of shooting, I was still constantly revising the script because we had run into a lot of production issues. So the setting of the store had to change, the nature of the store had to change. So everything was constantly reconfiguring it to what we had available up to the day of production. And then even as we were shooting, we shot everything I'd written, but in the cutting room, a lot of scenes just kind of played out too durational and too observational at times. I think with a short film, it's so tricky to just sit there and watch something because it's so short. You still have to kind of keep things moving. You have to give more information to the audience, whether it's visually or sonically. So I think in the cutting room, because I edited my own film too, so I had to get rid of a lot of scenes that I just absolutely loved so much. The shots were so beautiful and the performances were so gut wrenching, but I ended up having to let all of that go. Just really for streamlining down to what exactly is the relationship between the two sisters, and how can I convey that the city is moving without them through their relationship. And so I think it was just kind of distilling down, stripping away everything that didn't directly relate to their relationship. And then through a lot of different versions of cuts, I just kind of took things out. And then I think eventually what came through is when you watch the film, you'll feel a lot of negative space because so much is not said or not shown. So you feel like you maybe almost missed something, but something has happened. But I really like that feeling of negative space because I think it gives the viewer a little bit more imagination, and they can kind of fill in those gaps and what exactly happened in their relationship. I think everyone can kind of ingest themselves into that a little bit.
Yeah, I was speaking to that while I was watching. I initially thought, where are their parents? And then we sort of, I want to say somewhat late into the film, we get that nugget of information of what happened, and that it constituted sort of the rift between them. I'm speaking indirectly, just in case I don't want to ruin anything for anybody. So I think that the tensions between the sisters was so well articulated, because it was this accrual of like tiny little details, tiny little interactions, the way one of them says something, the fact that the Han pours the water into the noodle pot right before it's about to boil, or that she's even like, let's have eggs with this. And then beyond that, things like whether you're using like a stationary camera or handheld, there's this great building of the tension between them. I guess maybe if you could talk about that, how you all I want to say crafted that tension between them, such as like improv, or if there were like rehearsals, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that came through. But yeah, I think, the boiling noodle scene is one of my favorites because it's two salty sisters, and I love salty, repressed kind of tensions between people. It's just great. I like to keep it simmering until it boils over. The casting process in Taiwan was really weird because they didn't really, I guess I didn't have the budget to do a lot of auditions and chemistry tests with all the actors that I wanted. So it came down to kind of just being really, really selective in terms of who we called in to audition. And then just kind of going with a gut feeling and pairing. I eventually chose these two actors, but I didn't get to chemistry test them beforehand. So I was just kind of like feeling them out. I felt like they both had really good vibes, and it helped that both of them have sisters of their own in their own life. And the age difference is kind of similar to Liu Xing and Liu Han. And so in our rehearsals, we only had time for 2 rehearsals, and we only rehearsed their final scene together. And I think that was just kind of the core of the film anyway. So I think once we started kind of shaping that scene a little bit more in auditions, in rehearsals, they really kind of understood their characters' relationships. So it's a little bit of reverse engineering for them, like from that conflict, what's the backstory that led up to it? And then they both kind of filled in those gaps with their own personal kind of, history or imagination, just to give it a different layer. Because I like to have the actors bring something of their own, instead of me like dictating what every single detail should be. I feel like it's much more genuine that way. And there's something unique when the actors bring a part of themselves to this character, whether it's made up or real. I think it's all unique that way.
I mean, that certainly came across, that they had infused something very personal and some deep layers there. I wish we could keep talking, actually, but we are about to switch over to our interview with Keita Niwa, the director of AXANDAX, for our continuing live stream. Jesse, thank you so much for talking with us, for making a beautiful and sort of crushing film. And it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on this Saturday's Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival live stream. My name is Aaron Menino. I am the festival's volunteer co-director. Today, our special guest is Keita Niwa, the director of AXANDAX, one of our official selection films. And and Adachi Tash is going to be joining us as an interpreter for Niwa-san. こんにちは、皆さん。パーフでボランティア担当のエイラン・マニーノと申します。
はい、
本日の司会進行を務めさせていただきます。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。
本日の素敵なゲストは、AXANDAXの監督の三輪啓太です。日本から参加していらっしゃるんですが、今、日本では明日の午前10時頃ですね。
そうです。はい。
足立タシも通訳者として活躍してくれます。
ありがとうございます。
はい。Alright, so without further ado, I think we can proceed. それでは早速オンライントークを行ってまいりたいと思います。First, Director Niwa, may I have you introduce yourself and share a few words about your film?
丹羽さん、自己紹介をお願いします。
はい。AXANDAX 監督の丹羽啓太と言います。
I'm the director of AXANDAX. I'm Keita Niwa.
今日本に住んでいて、映画は大学に入学してから作り始めたんですけど、今ちょうど10年目になります。
I live in Japan and I started making films when I entered college, and now it's been about 10 years.
今現在は大学に助手として勤めていまして、その傍らで映画制作を続けていて、AXANDAXも働きながら作りました。
Currently, I'm working as an assistant at a university, and I create films on the side. And AXANDAX also was made as a side project.
はい。
ありがとうございました。So, for the remainder of our time, I will be asking some prepared questions and also taking audience questions. A brief word on the format for everybody for the mutual benefit of our special guest and also our audience. I'll be asking questions first in English and then in Japanese, and our interpreter Anne will be translating Director Niwa's answers and assisting with interpretation of audience questions. So if anybody has any questions as the live stream proceeds, just enter them into the live chat. これから私と配信をご覧になっている皆様より丹羽監督にちょっと質問をさせていただきたいと思うんですけど、まず質問を英語で、そして日本語で問いかけます。アンさんが丹羽監督の答え、そして観客の突然の質問を通訳してくれます。はい。
はい。
So I guess we can just start at the beginning. And maybe you could talk about the inspiration for AXANDAX, the initial spark and how it expanded it into an entire world. AXANDAX の制作のインスピレーションについて教えてください。何か最初のひらめきでどのようにこの世界に広がりましたでしょうか。
はい、普段生活する中で感じた社会に対する不満がインスピレーションにつながっています。
The inspiration comes from my criticism of the society today.
で、その中身なんですけど、その今世間体や実績とか、数字ばかりを気にして、その上辺の飾ったものが、中身が伴っていないのにもかかわらず評価されるっていう場面をよく見かけます。
There's a tendency to evaluate things that are on the surface in terms of numbers or on the surface level.
なんか、例えば、今大学の上の人から4年生の就職率を上げろっていうふうに言われてまして、 なんかこう、そういった一人一人の思いとかを考慮せずに、こうなんか数字だけ、目先の数字にこだわってるっていう風な感じがすごいするんですよね。
For example, for the final year student at a college, there's a recommendation or effort to try to have them be employed. But rather than looking at every individual's needs, the goal is to have the number produced of the number of people who are going to be employed.
で、本当に、はい、そういった、その数字で、大学の価値が決まるのかっていうと、そういうわけではないと思ってるので、そういった思いから、インスピレーションだったり、原動力っていう風な形になりました。
So I don't think that the value of a college is determined by these numbers of people who are going to who find jobs at the end of the schooling. So that became my inspiration for making this film.
I guess this is a little bit related to that last question. さっきの質問とちょっとつながっていますけど、
はい。
So the world of AXANDAX is all the more unnerving because to some degree it feels like the direction of our global society right now. You explained a little bit, but I was wondering what are some aspects of contemporary Japanese society that made you think AXANDAX could become a near future reality? AXANDAX の世界は我々を不安にされるところがあります。それはある程度のところ、現在のグローバル社会に似ているところがあるからです。現在の日本の社会のどういうところが近未来にAXANDAXの実現の可能性を合わせますか？
はい。私が思うに日本人の、シャイと言われているところが、よりAXANDAXのような世界に向けて加速させていると考えています。
What I think is the aspect of Japanese that we call tendency to be shy is what is propelling a world like AXANDAX.
というのが、そのコミュニケーションも、例えば直接面と向かって取らずに、なんかその場では適当に流して、陰で悪口を言っていたりだとかっていう、そういった嫌な場面とかも、よく見かけますし、なんかそういったリアルな人付き合いが減っていくと、なおさらデジタルでのコミュニケーションだったり、その情報に目が行きがちになってしまうのかなっていうふうに思います。
In terms of communication, there are more people who go about in passive-aggressive tendency, but rather than communicating directly to that person. So when you don't have this kind of actual person-to-person relationship, people tend to be attracted to more digital world.
ありがとうございました。So I think possibly the question on everyone's mind is what does AXANDAX mean? これが主な質問につながります。AXANDAX の名称はミステリアスですね。どのようにこのタイトルにたどり着いたのか教えてください。
はい。ちょっとこれ説明が難しいというか、ちょっと伝わるかわからないんですけど。
Explaining this is going to be a little difficult. It might not translate.
今回の作品は、価値が数値化された世界の物語になってます。
this world is about the value becoming numerical, number, being assigned a number to values.
で、そこで登場する主人公の価値のグラフの形っていうのが、一次関数 y イコール ax っていう形をしています。
This world with the characters of the world, their value is portrayed in a graph, and it shows a equals ax, or y equals ax. Sorry.
Yeah, こんな感じ。
Like that.
Like that. So, and で、この物語に、登場はしてないんですけど、ジンの兄の価値グラフの形っていうのが、指数関数 y イコール a の x 乗というふうな形をしています。
He doesn't appear in this film, but Jin's brother, older brother, his graph is portrayed in another. He'll show you y equals ax. Like that.
Like that. それで、AX and AX というふうな形で AXANDAX になりました。
So with that AX and AX, and it's AXANDAX.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging that question. それは兄弟の絆という意味とつながっていますね。
そうです、そうです。はい。
It's connected. The title is very, very intimately connected to the relationship of the brothers in this film, although one does not appear. So moving on to character. So developing characters that have to live in this world of numerical values, or being attached to your numerical value. I was wondering how deep into their identities did you go, and maybe how deep into their lives and identities do you typically go when you develop characters? キャラクターの創造発展はどのようなプロセスですか？通常どのぐらいの深さまでキャラクターのアイデンティティを作りますか？
普段私はキャラクターよりもストーリーやビジュアルに重きを置いてるんですけど、本作では初めて、そのヒューマンドラマというか、キャラクターに一番重きを置いたっていうのがあります。
Normally, I don't think about the characters very much. I think about the story and the visuals. But for the first time with this film, I wanted to work on the human drama, so I did work on the characters.
で、まず、この作品の企画の段階で、そのカウンセリングの話にしようと思ったときに、まず私がカウンセリングを受けたことがなかったので、現役の心理カウンセラー、4人に取材しに行きました。
When I was planning this film, I wanted to start with the story of counseling, but I never received counseling myself, so I interviewed 4 counselors.
そうで、最初私はカウンセラーっていうのは、すごい心が温かい人だと思ってたんですけど、意外と実はその逆で、一定の距離を置いて、話す少し冷たい印象を受けました。
I thought before starting this project that counselors are warm-hearted people, but rather they have to have some distance to the patients. So I had the impression that they were actually more of a cold, kind of yes, they're cold people.
そうだからこそ、そのナオミはその逆で、一般的にはそういうカウンセラーが多いんですけど、そうじゃなくて、ちゃんと一人の悩める人間として、温かみのあるキャラクターにしていきました。
So that's why I made Naomi to have sympathy with an individual's concerns and to have kind of a warm heart.
でちょっとジンについても、ちょっと少し長くなるんですけど、話しますと、
I'll speak about Jin. It might be a little long.
大まかにその、社会に嫌気をさして、その引きこもっているっていう風なキャラクター像が出来上がった後に、
basically, he became fed up with the society and started to stay home.
その後にオーディションを行って、演技力がうまいとかではなくて、その役者自身がそのジンというキャラクターにどれだけ共感できるかとか、同じような経験をしていないかという点でキャスティングをしました。
ごめんなさい。もう一回言ってください。
はい。
その後で。
はい。で、オーディションを行って、演技力がうまいとかではなくて、その役者自身がキャラクターにどれだけ共感できるかとか、同じような経験をしていないかという点でキャスティングをしていきました。
When I was casting this role, during the audition, I wasn't focused on how well their acting is, but I was looking at how similar to the character of Jin. How similar this the actor might have led to the life of Jin.
で、そのキャラクター像と、実際の役者っていうのを、こうすり合わせていって、キャラクターをどんどん深くしていきました。
So I took the character, the image of the character, and also the actor, and kind of deepened this character named Jin.
はい、すみません、長くなりました。
ありがとうございました。
はい。
More on the subject of characters. I think the way Naomi and Jin interact, I feel like, is one of the most compelling aspects of AXANDAX. Both of them sort of adapt to one another's strategies. I was wondering how you approach that psychology, both in writing and in visualization. I mean, having a counselor counsel another counselor seems like a kind of an incredible battle of wits. And that comes across in the film. ナオミとジンの触れ合いがアクサンダックスの最も観客を引き込む部分だと思います。両者がお互いの戦略を提案します。その心理を脚本とビジュアル両方にどのようにアプローチしましたか？カウンセラーがもう一人のカウンセラーを表現するのは、思考力のバトルのように思います。はい。よろしくお願いします。
はい、大丈夫です。はい。その先ほども少し話したんですけど、カウンセラー、4人に取材していって、そういった引きこもっている人と話すときはどういうふうな話し方をしていくのかっていうのは、その取材で確認しました。
As I said, when I was interviewing those 4 counselors, I wanted to know how those counselors speak to people who have shut off the society and are staying at home.
そうで、実際にいろんなやり取りの仕方っていうのを聞きながら、その脚本っていうのは作っていきました。
So I adapted some of the methods of how the counselors correspond with the patients and incorporated that into the film.
ビジュアル面で言いますと、やっぱり一定の距離を置く、カウンセラーっていうのは患者と一定の距離を置くので、ジンとナオミの間に一つテーブルを挟んで距離感を出したりしていました。
In the visual aspect, to convey this distance that the counselors have to keep, I put a table between Jin and Naomi.
で、さらにその物語が進んでいく中で、ジンが外に出たりとか、あとはテーブルを挟まずに斜めの横のソファに座ったりしていくんですけど、そういった位置関係なんかで心の距離が縮まっていくっていうのも表現しています。
In the story, things like Jin going outside or Jin sitting in a sofa in an oblique angle, these are the things that I kept to convey this.
はい。
続きまして、プロダクションデザインについてなんですが、まず英語ですみません。So the world of AXANDAX has a fairly distinct tone. The colors are all muted. With the winter setting makes it feel cold, both physically and emotionally. As you were describing a little bit, the framing of characters is often tight, and the camera is often still. I was wondering if you could share any more insights into things like the cinematography, the production design, and or location scouting for AXANDAX that helped establish its tone. AXANDAX の世界は独自なトーンがあります。色がミュートされています。冬の背景が身体的に、そして感情的に寒く感じさせます。キャラクターのフレームはタイトなところが多く、カメラも多くの場合動きません。AXANDAX のプロダクションデザイン、ロケーション探し、そしてシネマトグラフィーについて教えてください。どのようにAXANDAX の感じを作り上げましたか？
はい。まず本作が引きこもった男の話というか、ちょっとうつうつしい話だったので、質素というか、排他的というか、封鎖的なイメージにしたいと思って、冬の設定にまずしました。
I wanted to, because this film is about this man who shuts out the society and stays at home and is depressed. I wanted to convey this feel of convey that the depressed feeling.
そうで、さらに私の中での近未来の世界観っていうのが、余計なものを排除していった合理的というか、効率的なミニマリズムの世界なので、プロダクションなんかもスタイリッシュというか、必要最小限のものにしました。
My vision of near future is this minimalism, and it's very practical. So this setting is also matches that.
で、ロケーションに関しても、やっぱりそういった世界観を崩さないように、 まあ、すごい時間をかけて選びました。
With the location as well, I wanted to keep that this feeling, so I took my time to select the location.
で、シネマトグラフィーについては、まあ、やっぱりそのどこかこう冷たい感じを出しつつ、でもまあジンのその不安な感情というかトーンが続くように、まあ、結構固定した状態でアップよりの絵を、多く使いました。
With cinematography, to convey this coldness and also Jin's anxiety, I did keep the camera very still and shot things in upright.
ありがとうございました。すみません。あと5分終わります。
Okay.
ちょっと maybe you could share just a little bit about your filmmaking process in general. For example, I was wondering if you storyboard first or if you ever go off script. 映画制作のプロセスについて教えてください。例えば、ストーリーボードを使いますか？台本から離れることはありますか？
はい。基本的にはプロセス通り、普通の映画のプロセス通りに制作したとは思ってるんですけど、
Basically, I think that I followed a normal processes of filmmaking.
ストーリーボードについては今回書きませんでした。初めて。
I did not draw a storyboard.
それは、なんでかって言いますと、もともとそのカウンセリングの話っていうことがあって、なるべくこう様々な考えを巡らせている、余白だとか感情とかっていうのを残したかったので、
This is because I wanted to, the story is about counseling, and so I wanted to leave some blank spaces.
で、葛藤を割らずに、なるべく全部をその場で取るような形で、その場で考えていきました。
So I didn't make any, divide any cuts, and I kind of created as we went.
で、また台本についてなんですけど、これも今回初めて、アドリブというか、台本から離れることがありました。
Oh, with the script, there were many times that we left the script and so we left the script.
っていうのが、このラストのカウンセリングのシーンで、ジンが涙を流すシーンがあるんですけど、これは実は台本にはありませんでした。
In the last scene, in the counseling scene, the Jin has cries, but that was not in the script.
ただはい、そうなんです。はい。時間大丈夫ですか？はい。
実は残念ながらちょっとそろそろお時間に近づいてきましたね。So we're just about out of time. But at this point, I'd like to invite you, if you have any closing words for any of the audience, you can do that right now. 庭監督は配信をご覧になっている皆様へ向けて一言をお願いしたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
はい。この作品は少しちょっと暗い雰囲気で、いわゆるエンタメ映画ではありません。
This work is a bit dark and it's not what you call an entertainment film.
でもやっぱりこの映画を見て、すごく共感してくれたりする方がやっぱりいると思っているので、そういった方に見ていただけるとすごく嬉しく思います。
But I'm sure there are some of you who sympathize with this work. So I hope I hope you watch this film.
以上です。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうご
Thank
ざ
you
います。
very much.
皆様、ご協力ありがとうございました。And for everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I guess that's the end for our interview. Thank you again, Niwa Kantoku, and Anne as well. Thank you so much for helping out with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You say this kill, black and brown, and when will you talk about class in this story? The rest is allegory. Come together, unionize, see it through each other's eyes. No need to fight over supplies while workers save lives. They need protection too. What we gonna do? Organize our way through. And for those behind bars, we must fight hard. Global pandemic, endemic, systemic. No equality, no quality of life, of life.